I would just like to add one point, Survi. I mean, usually there is a notion in India which I have seen and encountered while I was applying that LLM is of particularly no use. Like LLM from abroad is of no use because the more emphasis has to give on the practice for a profession, for our profession, for that matter. While I was of a same opinion because I was a litigating attorney.
Hey everyone, I'm Surbi, founder of LegalWiki, and I welcome everyone to another episode of LegalWiki, your go to source for legal education and inspiration, where we interact with the best legal professionals across the legal industries. In this 19th episode of LegalWiki, we are conducting a joint panel with a special guest, Ms. Aakriti Vadehra, Ms. Kaamini Suhas, and Vedansh Vashisht. They all have completed LLM from George Washington University Law School, and now all three have chosen different paths. Let me start by introducing our esteemed speakers before we delve into the discussion. Ms. Aakriti. She is a designated partner at Kan and Krishme, a leading law firm in India. She is a registered Indian patent attorney with a degree in electronics and telecommunications engineering. Akriti has successfully prosecuted over 300 patent and trademark applications on behalf of esteemed Fortune 500 companies and research organizations. Also, she did her LLM in IPR. Ms. Kaamini Suhas. She is currently a legal manager at Marico. She is handling the company's legal work for their entire international business. Kamini was a GW Law Merit Scholar in 2023, and before pursuing LLM, she also worked as a senior associate in Denton's Link Legal. She is also a co founder of Radio Legal, a project aimed at simplifying legal concepts for the public. Ms. Kamini did her LLM in international and comparative law. Mr. Vedansh Vashisht. He is a litigation lawyer practicing in Delhi High Court, focusing on civil and commercial matters, arbitrations, and IBC cases. He works in the chambers of Mr. Sameer Vashisht, Additional Standing Counsel, GNCTD. He also did his LLM in IPR. Now, coming to today's podcast, the focus of this podcast is to understand the application process, how to choose the right college, the career option it opens up, and understand whether it's the right choice for aspiring legal professionals. So, now, a warm welcome to all of you, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you all. Let's get started. So, before getting into the discussion, as all of you did LLM from the same college, so did any one of you know each other before the LLM program, or are you guys meeting here for the first time?
So, okay, I'll start. I am Kamini and I, in fact, are from the 2023 batch, and Vedansh is our senior. He's from 2022 batch. So while I was looking for, current students or past alumni of GW, I obviously went on LinkedIn, and there I saw his profile, and that's when we connected. And he mentioned that he's coming back before I go to GW. So at that time we met, and turns out we actually live pretty close to each other in New Delhi. So that's how we connected. And Kamini and I, we met at the school.
Oh, that's great. Oh.
Yeah, that's
It
correct.
means that Kamini and Vedansh, you guys are meeting for the first time, right?
Yes, we are meeting for the first time.
That's great. Oh. Okay, so moving on, let's start with the discussion. So, starting with Akriti, what led you to pursue an LLM from a foreign university, and what was the application process?
So, what led me to pursue an LLM from a foreign university is because I did my LLB in India, of course. And during that LLB, I realized that, so I was also working as a patent attorney in India. And a lot of my clients are Americans and Europeans. And in fact, a lot of them are Japanese as well. But all of them, of course, the charm of US does not, vanish for any one of them. So that charm of US was present in me as well, of course. And that's one thing that led me to pursue, to even consider an option of LLM abroad. And the second part was that because so many of my clients were foreign, so that's why I considered it a requirement of my career to maybe pursue an LLM from abroad. And as far as the application process is considered, so I completed my LLB in 2022, and in the same year, October, I started looking for good schools, especially for IPR, because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I have been doing for so long. So for IPR, of course, GW was the best in US, especially for patents. And so I started looking for good schools in October. And then my degree arrived a little bit later, as is as is typical. So I started the application process, in fact, in late November or maybe even early December. So the application, the timing of the application is very important, because by the time December arrived, I realized that all of the application process of Ivy Leagues have already finished. So I could not, consider even Ivy Leagues like Stanford, because Stanford also has a very good IPR program. Stanford or Berkeley, they had already finished. So that may be, I mean, maybe December, January, I may be confusing between the dates. But my point is that the timing of the application is very important. So the application process requires, of course, a lot of documents. In addition to all your formal documents like the degree and the certificates and all those, you also need a standard, a statement of purpose, a SOP, and within that SOP, it's basically a whole life story. That what led you to where you are right now, and what you want to do in the future, and why this particular school. So that SOP has to be tailored for each and every application for every school, basically, whatever wherever you apply. So in addition to the SOP, I did LORs, of course, letters of recommendation. You have to take letters of recommendation from at least two people. It is recommended that you take one from the university which you had previously been to, whether it is LLB or another, preferably LLB, to be honest, or maybe even a previous school that you had attended, and one professional if you have been working in the industry for some time. I was able to do both of them. So I took one LOR from my school, LLB school, and then one from my professionals. So that's pretty much the application process, I think. If I'm not missing out something, I think my colleagues can fill in on that.
So was
I'll
the
just add one more thing. Sorry.
Sure. Nee, I was just
I'll
asking,
just add
was the application process smooth or did you face any challenges?
It was pretty smooth. There was some confusion between applying directly and going through LSAT. So that was one thing that I remember being confused about. But because I was not applying to like hundreds of schools like USJDs, I decided to go directly.
Yeah,
it
Vedansh.
is actually very easy to apply for LLM colleges when you have an LSAC account because in that we have the options very easily to fill up the schools where we want to enroll ourselves. And a good thing about that LSAC account is they offer us one school as a complimentary, in the sense that there is this particular amount of fee which you pay to apply for per school. Like I remember I paid like $50 to $60 for one form of each school. So LSAC account was quite kind enough to give us one school as a complimentary, that you can fill it up. And if you are selected in that school, that can be a good advantage in your application process. And apart from that, I think everything was pretty much same what Akriti said. I also wrote an SOP of very short SOP, like a 500, 600 words, because I was briefed by my seniors that, the shorter you keep, the more crisp your contents are. It's more likely that, they will appreciate you. And, unlike other students, like, they just write long essays, just to fill up everything. So rather that, I think a concise SOP is always beneficial. And LORs, absolutely. I sent three LORs because I applied for LLM when I was in my fifth year, that is ninth semester, because I made up my mind very early, sorry. And it was a very big conversation with my family, and my father was also, supporting, and was saying that you should probably make your decisions in the right manner. So after that good long conversation, so when I was in my final year, I made up my mind, okay, right after I complete my LLB, I should go for my LLM, so that the a continuation of studying as a student goes on, and you have all the, how should I say, legal knowledge, or maybe a particular knowledge on the specialization which you are taking, and you grasp more things in a international manner. you know so I took LORs of my senior professors, like one dean and one of my subject teachers who was teaching me IPA back then. And it was like a very interesting experience in the sense I had to stay long. I used to stay up a lot late at nights because of the time zone which we and USA share. So before going to sleep, I used to always check my emails that, it's 1 a.m. because it's 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. So have they given any feedback? Have they given feedback? So I would just say it in a last line that, the benefits of applying in a timely manner is that the universities also appreciate that, okay, the student is serious. Unlike, there can be some students, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, that, they just send their CVs in every school, so that in a belief that, okay, we can get selected here, we can get selected there, rather than, strictly paying attention that, what advantages you can have if you apply in that fixed school. So I was very sure in my mind that, I had that six schools which I had to, apply. And after reading the terms and conditions, the reading the brochure, understanding the positive points, what they were offering me as a student, and after those things in mind, I applied actually very early, like rather the second day when the application forms opened in September 2021. Yeah, September 2021, I applied, and luckily in the month of December 2021, I got the offers from all the schools. So that is my way of, application process.
Okay. Kamini, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, for sure. So, the challenges which I kind of faced, or I would not call it challenges, but the limitations that I had, that I was a working professional. I was a full-time working professional. And being in litigation, it is like 8 in the morning to like 8 at night. It was a 12 hours complete work profess. So I used to come back home from office and then used to start applying for sure. So I think being a working professional, that was one time. Understanding the timeline of the process was one thing that I really faced. Second, I really thought that keeping the timelines of the deadlines were one important challenges, as Akriti rightly mentioned, that knowing different colleges have different deadlines, and therefore having that track of the timeline is one thing that you really have to maintain. So I would suggest that maintaining an Excel sheet or some kind of record to see which colleges that you have applied. And third, limit, I don't call it as a challenge, but yeah, I think one of it that I realize that we should understand is customizing your SOPs as per different colleges. So different programs, as Vedansh rightly pointed out, that have a limited college set which you really want to target and apply, depending upon the program that you want to surely go for, and then customizing your SOPs as per that particular college would also help you give an edge from other applications. So sitting back and they're customizing each and every word, or each and every, not each and every word, but more or less the entire purpose of SOP was one thing that was also very time consuming. But the overall experience was really, I would say, was an enriching one. For me, why I chose was is because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. Working for some time, you really go into a comfort zone because you now get to know the job, you get to know the law, and you are kind of repeating the same thing again and again. Going out and studying, especially applying and getting into that process, and then applying and then going to a different country altogether, meeting different people from different cultures, is actually going out of comfort zone, and then I think you become a different person altogether. So that was my purpose, actually, to go and take LLM or pursue LLM.
That's great. So I think there are three important things to keep in mind. One is the SOP, and the second one is, I think, LOR, and the applying in the right time. So I think that's the main important thing. So Kamini, that's your reason that you wanted to go abroad and meet new people, that you wanted to do LLM from foreign university?
So that was one of the reason, I would say, not the only reason, but yeah, fundamentally, I thought that after working for a few years, I realized I got a clarity of what I would want to specialize into, or what I would want to get, what I would like to know more about, and I thought that obviously practice is one of the aspects that you keep growing upon, but having the right network, having the right knowledge, and having the right opportunity set is also very important for a career growth. And I thought that LLM is the one that would allow me to kind of get foot in the door at that point of time for the specialization that I wanted to go.
Correct. So, does it also help in improving the job prospects in India? Like doing
Yes.
LLM from foreign universities?
Yes, I think we would, Akriti and I would be very equipped with giving inputs to this. Just recently completed it. So fundamentally, it depends upon at what career trajectory you are, at what point of career you are in. But I believe it's also the way you put forth that profile. Like, for instance, I would just like to share my experience. So I have done LLM in international law. So I studied international trade law, I studied international business transactions, I studied international project finance, getting a view of how a company having businesses across the world, especially with the advent of globalization and international trade, how does a legal aspect of international business work? And that's what I exactly did in kind of cracking my interview with Marico. As I said, it's an FMCG company having around 8 subsidiaries across the world, 6 to 8 subsidiaries, and businesses across the world. So I was able to kind of align that what I learned in my master's is exactly what your international business is doing, and I can be a value addition if you can, if I get selected for the profile. So it's obviously on the way you put forward what you have studied, and that will determine how it will help you in the job prospects in India.
Great. So, Vedansh, like, what's your thought on this? Like, you always wanted to do LLM from foreign universities, right? So, how it is helping you out in your career, and would you recommend the other litigating or the practicing advocates who are entering into litigation to pursue LLM from foreign universities instead of like India?
Okay, so my answer should be yes, because my story of pursuing LLM also in IPR, it all started when I was interning in Remfree. It was just before my conclusion of my LLB tenure, and I used to go to High Court with the Remfree team, and I was doing trademark and entertainment law subject internship in that brief period. So interestingly, I was sitting in the court of Justice Amit Bansal. At that time, he used to have the roster of the IPR bench. So I was waiting for my matter in which I was involved. And surprisingly, there was one case arguing in front of the court, which was of a film called Parmanu of John Abraham film that was actually talking about the entertainment law, that how that film actually, there were some scenes in that film which were copyrighted from a South Indian remakes film. So the dispute was of this subject, and this was very fascinating for me as a very young fifth year student, that oh wow, this is also a subject which I never studied in my law school. So after going back home, doing a little bit of research that what exactly what this entertainment field looks like, and then I had a little bit of knowledge. Then I read a couple of books in that, and I understood that okay, this is a subject which I wasn't aware in my law school period. But then while applying for LLM, I was quite sure that if I'm gonna go abroad anywhere, entertainment law would be one subject which I would love to grasp my knowledge on. So this is one reason, of course, that why I chose abroad my LLM, because this subject I had no idea that I would have got the opportunity to learn in Indian school, Indian law school, but like in Indian law school. And after that, then after reading the brochures, as I told you, of each school, the subjects which they were offering, it was more like it was giving good motivation to me that the direction is right. The plans are going in the right side, that that okay, entertainment law, trademark, patent, and one more subject, copyright. Yeah. So these all subjects were very new for me, and of course very fascinating for a student to learn and gain his knowledge. So that motivated me, that encouraged me to apply, and then accordingly I went for it. And after completing my LLM, I was quite satisfied and super happy of the fact that the knowledge which I gained from US, I I can say that if you apply in a firm in India after coming back, that can give you an added opportunity, and it can get little convenient that if you join an IPR firm, the knowledge which you gained abroad, that will definitely be useful here. But luckily, I joined the chamber, and very new in my practice, I got couple of IPR matters. So if you are lucky, I think the subjects which you studied abroad, that was very helpful and beneficial for me in my practice of day-to-day litigation. So it's very rare, I would say, that a litigating lawyer can have certain benefits if you are studying an individual subject. If you're mastering a LLM in an individual subject, that becomes little limited, I would say. But there are subjects like general LLM, which gives you a broad picture of all the law, and once you come back to your native country, that helps you. But in my case, I would say I was very lucky, and the IPR subjects which I studied, I got the opportunity to prove it, in the courts of Delhi, the district courts of the high courts, and I reasonably did well in terms of making notes, or like making cease and desist, and assisting and helping my senior and the teams in the field.
Great, great. So Akriti, anything you would like to add so that how it helped you in your career, job prospectus in India?
So I cannot really talk about job prospects because I joined the same firm that I was working with earlier. But yes, they certainly look upon your foreign education as a plus point during, rehiring or hiring at another place as well. And also, about my own job, I would say that so I am prosecuting patents in India, and at the same time, so patent is a very, it is a territorial field. It is a territorial right. But having said that, it is an international field. So, when you're working with in patents, you draft patents not only for India, but those patents are more likely going to be filed in US and Europe as well. So for that purpose, my US LLM education, in particularly patent law, really helped me because after coming back, I have been back for about, so we came back in May, and it is November now. So even in this period, I have already drafted 3 US patents, and those have already been filed in US. So yes, my US education has certainly helped me. I'm not counting Indian drafting because obviously, having learned US drafting, Indian drafting has also been improved. But yes, foreign education has helped me a lot in my career.
Great.
I would just like to add, I would just like to add one point, Surbi. I mean, usually there is a notion in India which I have seen and encountered while I was applying, that LLM is of particularly no use. Like LLM from abroad is of no use because the more emphasis has to give on the practice for a profession, for our profession, for that matter. While I was of a same opinion because I was a litigating attorney, I realized that. With the increasing scope or position of India in the global markets, particularly India's position in the world economy, the international trade, we cannot be protectionist in our approach. We cannot be inward looking in our approach. And we have to really have a global perspective for doing any kind of profession or any kind of business for that matter. And therefore, having a foreign LLM degree or a foreign profession gives you a different perspective of looking at any kind of matter. So, be it international arbitration, as Akriti mentioned, the patent law, what Vedant mentioned about copyrights or designs for that matter. And therefore, I feel that even for a litigation lawyer, where practice is more emphasized than going out for education or for masters, I feel the matters that are coming in are either having an analogy or a parallel analogy across different nations, different jurisdictions, or having some or the other impact for that matter. So I feel um, now people are changing their approach and they're changing their perspective of looking towards LLM and not really considering as a last option, but as considering as a necessity for that matter.
Correct. So, that's the reason I wanted to ask this question because many law graduates, they are confused that whether they should pursue the LLM from India or abroad, or they should actually pursue it or not. So
Yeah.
that was the whole point of asking this question. Okay. So moving on to my next question. So Vedansh, like as cost is a major concern for many students. So what are the options available for covering the fees and other expenses? So like are loans and scholarships easy to get?
So, so I mean, while I was applying for my LLM, and thanks to the LSAC account, there were, some descriptions given that what each school is offering in terms of scholarship. Uh, I got confirmation of yes from all the six colleges where I applied, and there was little bit of variation in terms of scholarship. There were some schools who were giving less scholarship, and then there was a school who gave me a perfect scholarship, which actually matched my criteria, and it ticked my box, and hence I went to that university. uh, I mean, this is my idea and my thinking that maybe it depends on the basis of how your application looks like. They probably shortlist you with the scholarship amount they give. Because I can share one example. There was another student who went from Ahmedabad. Now she's working in US. So she applied in the same university little late as compared to me. So while I got my confirmation in December 2021, she applied in Jan, and then she got a confirmation late, like in the month of April. So the amount of scholarship she received was way less than what I received at the first place. So maybe this can be an answer that, if a student applies in a time bound manner, the scholarship amount the university will be desirous to give you, which, can match up the criteria, or, that can give you an authority that, okay, they have been kind enough, and now it's my job, or maybe, just to say them a yes or a polite no. This is the scholarship angle, which I understand. I'm not sure that if Fulbright concept has started in India, though there were some of my other friends from different countries who entered US and the university with the Fulbright scholarship. So when I asked them, they did tell me a very elaborative procedure that, you have to chase them, you have to write mails constant, you have to find out from internet, you have to apply in certain social services to be eligible for Fulbright. Since I don't have much idea on that, so I will not wish to give any wrong information. But just to come back to the question, I believe the university is very kind enough to give you scholarships if you have that, a good profile. If that excites them, that okay, he or she from this country, that country, is matching my list, so that this student can be enrolled in my university. Let's see what he can offer. So my answer should be yes, scholarships are available. And loans, I mean, I didn't apply for loans, so I have no idea on that. But when I was, in the visa office, I did hear some conversations of fellow students. They say that, it's not that difficult if you have proper application, if you have proper statistic table which shows that, you took this much amount as a loan, and, you're going to repay in the time bound manner, and you're not going to leave the country without not paying the loan. So I believe that should suffice the answer.
Great.
And then the second phase of the question, which you ask about the expenses and the cost of living in America, I would definitely agree that it was extremely high, even for me. And the hustle which, I took in terms of finding a particular room for my stay in America, that is a very challenging, and equally tedious experience. But thanks to Facebook housing, I remember back those days in the month of June, when, when we completed a semester in my case. So I used to, each night I used to stay up late and, match the time zone. So I used to text them that, I need a room. These are my particular criterias. Can you find me something? So luckily, I got a very good accommodation in Petworth, which is like 45 to 50 minutes away from the university's main campus. But I would say one thing for sure, that the public transport in America is fabulous. Buses as well as metro connectivity is extremely great, and they are so on time that, there are really rare cases that, a bus or a metro will come late as per the schedule time of their arrival. So I used to travel on bus, being a student as well as a tourist. That gives us both a luxury to enjoy the city view and, go for your classes. And the good thing is that the public transports do work till late night, even if it's on a weekday. They work, I think, till midnight or till 11:30, if I'm precisely saying, and similarly in the weekends as well. Uh, The rents, I believe, each year is pretty high. I think Akriti and Kamini can help me in that because I luckily had a little less rent to pay. And once I left, I had some friends who were, applying for the OPTs and all. So they were crying that, the rent is super high. But that is one of the ways, you can cut your expenses by, staying little away from the university. And, public transport will make you reach the destination on time. Secondly, I would say that students should learn cooking because eventually that helps a lot. The amount of North Indian cuisine I made in 10 months, I remember that, how I survived mostly because eating in a restaurant or, eating in a Pizza Hut or McDonald's is little expensive. And I believe I cannot do it daily, but there could be some students, I don't know that. And in terms of grocery, I would say there are good options. Like, there is Safeway, if I am still right on that. And then there's Target, and, these grocery stores were very beneficial and they have everything, So I hope that students, they don't carry the food with them, while they pack their bags and travel for America. I was one of them, so I'm not going to shy. The amount of rice and, the things I carried with me, I remember it was really unnecessary because everything is available back there. And there are good Indian stores as well. I think I'm forgetting the name. It's Patel something, but so
Yeah.
there are, yeah, so there are so many options, for each student to, balance his expenses, and he or she can actually have a very peaceful life by, living in a balanced way.
Great. So, anything you guys would like to add to this? It was the same
Go
experience
ahead.
overall regarding
Yeah,
the
so
cost. Huh?
yeah, so fine. From a finance perspective, I think for prospective aspirants who are really looking for doing masters, I think that has to be fundamentally your first or a second criteria to determine where you want to go. Again, there is a debate going on between US and UK, and then comparison of the cost and the scholarships that.
So, Akriti, meanwhile, you would like to add something to this?
Yeah, sure. So, in terms of scholarships, so first of all, I also did not apply for any loans. We were, in fact, I think Vedansh, Kamini, and I, we were all lucky enough to receive a scholarship from our schools. And yes, timing of the application matters a lot because they have that dedicated budget and they keep giving out of that budget. So once that budget is over or limited, then they will obviously not be in a position to give you any good scholarship. Maybe not enough that you deserve. So timing of the application matters in that respect as well. And in my experience, so I also applied to 6 universities, and I also managed to receive a scholarship, variable scholarship, from almost all of them. So I mean, this is my experience. It may or may not be true that a lot of US universities, I cannot say about UK, but a lot of US universities do give out scholarships, and maybe even for Indians, because Indians, like Kamini mentioned, that we are going out of our way and really putting our country forward, and they see that. US certainly sees that. I don't know what will happen under the new administration. I cannot be certain about that, but we are lucky enough to be from the past administration, so we were lucky enough to receive those advantages. And so apart from that, Kamini and we were both living in Foggy Bottom, which is very close to the university. And we were able to, so for that matter, we did not have any cost in terms of traveling or conveyance. We were able to walk to the university every day. And groceries are pretty easy. There is really no problem for that. Everything is available, Indian, whether Indian or any other cuisine for that matter. There was also another app. Now I'm maybe getting into the details, but there was this app called V, which we used a lot, and it has all kinds of Asian food, including Indian, of course. So all of our Asian community, we were using that app for delivery. And of course, you like, if you're ordering it together for like 4 or 5 people, then the cost can be divided in terms of delivery as well. So yeah, I think that's all from me. But Kamini, you please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for my network issue. So yeah, I was from a cost perspective, I would firstly scholarship. And I specifically was very keen and focused on getting scholarship, considering the clarity that I had that I want to come back to India. I was like, spending in dollars and then repaying in INR does not really make sense. So the more scholarships you get, the better it is for the future financial stability. And therefore, while I would say the conclusion from my research was UK has more opportunities for scholarship. Like you have Cambridge scholarship, you have Chevening scholarships, you have multiple. Chevening is a UK government scholarship, so that is a very good opportunity. From a US perspective, as Vedansh mentioned, there's one government UK. So yeah, so I think Fulbright scholarship is one. Apart from, so there are two aspects to this. One is the internal college scholarship, as GW has a GW Merit Scholar, Columbia, Cornell, all these colleges also have multiple scholarships. You need to understand which scholarships you fit into because they're also very program specific scholarships. So I would suggest that while you're applying for colleges, also ensure that you look for colleges as well. Internal scholarships are provided at the colleges. They are tough to get because of the competition, but if you have the right profile, the right application for it, I think it should not be a tough job.
Okay.
And apart from that, there are extra scholarships.
Till then, I'll just add one line more. Just say that the students who are actually planning to even settle after completing their LLM, I believe there are some in-campus part-time jobs which they can do. I remember when it was my orientation day, I was briefed about the same, and I was so happy when I heard that conversation with the professors and the dean that you can be a librarian and you can uh, be in the sales team when that university have that sports complex where they distribute their jerseys, their essential things which are of only the universities. So that idea students can acquire. They have to plan accordingly because it's not very easy, because they require you to stay there for long hours, and that's why you would be paid for hourly basis. So if students have that things in their mind, then I believe they can negotiate their rent through that income. Because what I know from some of the friends who applied for internal jobs in the university, they got handsome amount which used to either fill up their groceries list, or like some used to pay rent. And keeping all those things in mind, I think students can look on those things as well.
Great. So, Kamini, if you're here, you would like to add something to this? Or
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, to add, I was on the external scholarships. So there are a lot of scholarships which, apart from Fulbright, there are also there, which is country neutral, I would say. There is PN Sakarya scholarship, if I'm not wrong. Tata Trust has its own set of scholarships. So I would actually encourage students to or aspirants to start looking for these scholarships as early as possible because their deadline is a bit strict as compared to the college deadline. So and that they are pretty good in nature as well. So that was one part of it. With regards to expenses, as Akriti mentioned, both of us, we were staying in Foggy Bottom, very close to our college, and therefore we did not have a traveling cost. But yeah, as Vedansh rightly pointed out, the renting or the housing is really expensive if you compare it to India. And I would like, we were on a student budget spree. So wherever we get free food or wherever it used to be where we can cut down on our expenses, that is what we really focused upon. But at the same time, I would say that you are in a new country, in meeting new people, so you also have to explore and not limit yourself because of the monetary aspect. So cutting down on unnecessary but utilizing it for something to gain experiences is what I think we can weigh it out from.
great. So, if you all can mention one advantage and disadvantage of pursuing LLM from foreign university.
Okay, so I believe the advantages are that the amount of networking you make in that due due period of your LLM period, that is just phenomenal. And it's like that you're not only networking with them just for the sake of it, or just like, for the academic purpose, rather out of academic life as well, the lifestyle which they have lived in their native countries, and the traditions which they follow, the diets they follow, and the preferences, the choices of their traveling inside the states, and the preferences and the books which they read. I had so many friends who used to love reading how should I say, fairy tale dramatic textbooks. I don't know why, but they taught me a couple of things in those aspects, which was very phenomenal. And networking becomes a very big thing, as I said. And apart from networking, I would say, if you have a very good group, you can participate in many activities which happen in the university. I was saying that if you have a very good group of the students, so you can participate in many activities. You can take part in their internal college, how should I say, a college I think I'll rephrase. So what happened is that there used to be SBA elections in the university. So I took part in it, and I was being the winner, as I got the votes. So I represented the LLM core group in the SBA elections, which they do it every weekly. So that was probably the best opportunity. As an international student, I got the chance to enter the premises and understand the US constitution a little bit, that how they put pitch in their notions, and and how they as a team together collectively take initiatives in the best interest of the university. So for me, that experience will always stay very close to my heart. And networking, then you participate in such events. And then I would just say one more point. The professors connect with you so nicely, that I remember when we were having a spring break, I went to Boston just for my travel. And surprisingly, in one of the streets, I met two professors who teach me entertainment law and copyright. So the relation with professors is just not inside the campus. They are equally interested to know you more even outside the campus. So such bond and such relation, I feel it's very rare to find in India. So for me, these three will always be my top notch advantages, and my things well, I'll always recommend to students to pursue abroad.
Great. So, anything you guys would like to add, Kamini and Akriti? Any advantages or disadvantages you have faced or someone else can face?
Honestly, other than cost, I cannot think of any other disadvantage. I really was raking my brains to come up with a disadvantage, but I could not come up with one. Uh, I think Vedansh and even Kamini can agree with me on this, that US, even maybe UK, may not be as safe as the protectionist society that we have been brought up in India. So safety is one concern. It is not a disadvantage, but it is a concern that everybody has to look out for. Whether you're living 5 minutes away from the university or 50 minutes away from the university, safety is something that really has to be. I mean, it's a very major concern. I would just say that much. But talking about advantages, so I'll add one more thing to what Vedant said: culture. That you experience, you learn so much about culture of not just the people in US, but because LLMs are a lot of international batch. So there's a lot of international people coming in from Germany, from Japan, from Korea, from even Africa. So many people were there in our batch, especially. So we learned a lot about their culture, their experiences, and so that is one part of the culture. Then there is, of course, the Americans, from whom you can learn so much about their culture. And there's the professors. So the kind of teaching, the kind of method that we have of learning in India is very different from what American law schools teach. In America, it is the Socrates method which is followed for learning, and I did not do my learning in that way in my law school. So that was a very different experience. And at the first, during the first five, not five, maybe 4 months, basically during the first semester, we all used to hate it. We all were like, why are we doing this? Why it's pointless and all that. But by the time second semester rolled in, we realized, okay, it's very useful. It is actually very practical. So we learned a new way of learning, new way of legal research, and that turned out to be actually very beneficial. So the advantages are number one, culture, networking, of course, and how you expand your horizons. So that is from me.
Kamini, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree to all the points that Akriti and Vedansh mentioned. Just one aspect which I thought that was different from what we learned in an Indian education system to the US was that I think in India, what we do is, and I'm not generalizing it, but that's my opinion, but what we do is we look at law in a very strict jacket manner or in a very watertight manner, in a very technical manner. And we somewhere or the other fail to understand, to put law in the aspects of society or businesses for that matter. And what I learned in US or during my LLM while doing networking and all that is you have to look at law and businesses from an aligned perspective, which is in order to give a right advice, you need to understand the business of the client first from in a commercial matters, and therefore you only understand the business of the client when you network, when you speak to them deeply about their business, going beyond law with them. And I think this is what it happens when you really go out of the classrooms. It happens when you do the networking, and that's one advantage which I thought that US law schools offer to you, and they push you a lot in that nature.
Correct. Okay, so moving further. So now what if someone wants to stay abroad and work? So you guys came back to India, but what if someone wants to stay there? So what will be the process and how easy or is it very difficult to get a job in US after completing LLM? And if you can also mention if like someone wants to not work in a US but in some other countries after like completing LLM from like foreign universities. So what will be the process look like?
I think
So,
the the very simple process should be that after completing the LLM, he or she will have to apply for the New York bar exam, because that is one of the criterias. You have to pass that exam in order to sustain as an attorney in the United States. And for that you have to commit lots of hours in the preparation and everything. I was also exploring LinkedIn. Many of my friends of the universe of the batch, and Aakriti and Kaamini friends as well, I believe, they all passed the exam. So after having a chat with them, they just told us that it requires 8 to 10 hours on daily basis, to crack this exam. And if you don't crack this exam, then the options are very limited in the states in terms of surviving for a long run. Uh, what I know, I'm not sure though, but it's like that you can get internships under professor, but for that also they check many things in your background, that are you American, do you know the basics of the constitution, do you have general idea that how this system works or how the process applies in a manner, etc., etc. And then you have to even apply for OPT. That is a wholesome task. I have not much information on that though, because that's one of the reasons I chose not to pursue in America, because that OPT requires a lot of mental strength, and lots of it requires a lot of commitment, that you have to be so to the point on each and every things you do in the states, that they don't object you, or they don't put any question on you, that, oh, why did you do this, why didn't you do that. You have to pick up certain subjects in order to get a job in America, because yeah, because I feel that if you don't study their mandatory subjects, I feel life in America after LLM would be a little challenging, because yeah, life in America would be very challenging. I feel like that should be my answer.
Akriti?
Yeah, so I also obviously did not go for the OPT process or even the New York bar for that matter, because for the New York bar you have to take some particular mandatory subjects that I did not take. I was very sure that I'm coming back to India and I want to do an LLM in intellectual property. So if I'm doing intellectual property subjects, I cannot, because we have limited 24 credits, and I used all of my credits up in IP subjects. So I did not have any credits left for the New York bar subjects, because I was very clear in my fundamentals, that in my motive, what I'm going to do afterwards. So that is one thing that I recommend students should also have clarity on. Then comes OPT, sorry. That is I'm not sure if I'm correct in my full form. It's optional practical training, in which after LLM, all students, whether they are, in fact, after their education in US, all students get this option, and you can go for an OPT. But once again, the process is very long and tedious, and I mean, it takes a lot of effort to first apply to be eligible for the application, and thereafter to actually get a job under that OPT period. And that OPT period is for 1 year, after which you have to show that you are capable of being employed in US instead of American citizen. And for that, of course, New York bar is the first requirement for law students, I mean. I'm now talking specifically about the OPT period. In our batch, I would say about 70 to 75 people have secured a job under OPT. The ones who have not been able to secure a job, they are still looking for one. Or if there's a particular time limit within, I think it is 1 year, if I'm not wrong, within after your LLM, within which you have to find a job. Otherwise, you cannot stay in US under your particular visa that you came in. So during that period, if you're not able to find a job, you have to go back. And I realized that just looking at the trend, most of the people who were able to secure a job under OPT are people who, of course, had good grades during their LLM and also had a prior professional experience. That's what I experienced. Whether that is in India or even US, very few of them are obviously had experience in US. But if you had professional experience in India, that did translate into something worthwhile in US as well. So a profession coming to US for an LLM with professional experience is better than coming to US for an LLM directly. If you, especially if you want to stay and do a job.
Correct. Kamini?
Yeah, I think I agree to what Akriti said, that two important things is going to the US with a professional experience. One is that you have a clarity of what kind of specialization you would want to do, considering that you have some kind of professional experience. And secondly, you can always uh, pitch or put your profile in such a way to the US prospective employers, saying that you already have worked on such kind of matters that they are doing, and therefore it becomes an added advantage for sure. But yeah, I think before applying or going forward with the US job market, I would suggest to the aspirants again to look at their end goal of what they're seeking. Are they so if you are thinking that you will work in the US for 2 3 years and again come back to India and work here, so again, just like in US, the Indian experience is consider negligible or as good as negligible. I think it's likewise in India as well. Obviously, you have an added advantage of having a network and things like that. But yeah, before venturing into the after an LLM, venturing into the job markets or to the OPT process, one needs to have a clarity of what one wants to have its career trajectory or career path. Once you have that, it becomes easy. It becomes your effort also becomes focused in order to secure a job, and the journey, as Vedansh mentioned, is a very tedious and requires a lot of mental strength. Once you are clear about your end goal, I think it becomes easy to bear with all the defeats that comes with its journey.
Correct, great. Okay, so now moving to my last two questions. So, as each of you is in different field of law now, could you briefly share what your current role entails, and finally, what advice would you like to give to Indian lawyers considering an LLM from the US? So, I'll start with Akriti. So, what is the process involved in becoming a designated partner and an Indian patent attorney? And finally, what advice would you like to give to young Indian lawyers?
Okay, so I am an Indian patent attorney. That means that I have a technical background and a legal background. I did my electronics and I did my engineering in electronics and communication engineering. And after that, immediately after that, in fact, I joined my current firm as a patent engineer. While I was working as a patent engineer at that firm, I did my law school, the 3 years full. And luckily or unluckily, that was during COVID. So I was able to work from home and also study from home, at least for better half of my LLB. And then, of course, I went to US immediately afterwards for my law. I mean, for my LLM. So the role of a patent attorney is both technical and legal because we are basically convincing the patent office of India or any other country for that matter, wherever you are registered in, to give your client a patent for their invention. And invention is of course technical, so you have to be technically qualified to convince the patent office to give your client a patent. In addition, patent is also legal right, so you have to give arguments from both the technical and the legal perspective. That is what I do basically in India. That is in my firm, I mean, that's what I do. And your question about what it takes to be a designated partner. So I've been with the firm, like I mentioned, as soon as I completed my engineering. And for me, unluckily, because COVID struck, so the patent agent exam, every country does a separate exam for patent agents. That particular patent agent exam did not happen for 2.5 years. I could have appeared for that exam immediately after my engineering, but that did not happen. So I was working as an engineer. I was officially working in the capacity of an engineer, but I was actually doing everything that a patent agent does. So that experience I have, by the time I returned from my LLM and rejoined the firm, I already had 6.5 years of experience. And that experience counted because I was always working. Even while I was doing my LLM in US, I kept up to date with whatever was happening in the firm. So that translated into something, and of course, the foreign education helped, and the skills and the not just your legal or technical skills, of course, your communication skills as well matters. So that's what helped me come to this position.
Great. And any advice you would like to give to the young lawyers or someone who want to pursue LLM from US?
I would, so a lot has already been talked about in this podcast. I would just recap that, in fact, and say that uh, you have to be sure about what you want. You cannot just, fire an arrow in the dark and one fine day just decide that I want to pursue an LLM. In what field? I mean, it has to be very clear. You have to be very clear what field, what are your goals 1 year from now after completing a LLM, what are your goals 5 years from now, even. You have to at least have a vision. Even if you don't follow up on that, that is a different story. But if you have a vision, accordingly, you will you perform your acts. So that is my advice, that have a clear vision of your 5 year goal, what you plan to do, and accordingly only then you will be able to actually do that.
Correct. Great. So, Kamini, moving to you. So, what does your role as legal manager at Marico involve, and what advice would you like to give to those interested in a similar role, and final advice to the young lawyers?
Yeah, indeed. So my role currently, as I mentioned earlier, is basically I handle the international business of the company, supporting their international business, their subsidiary entities across the world, with all the legal aspects. So it involves basically negotiating with our customers, our distributors, to IP protection. International IP is one of the major profile that I'm currently having, though I did not study IP in my law school in my subjects, but I did international law. So that somewhere or the other helped me kind of understand, gain the knowledge of how international IP works. And my profile involves obviously supporting the businesses in dealing with making their business efficient for that matter. One advice that I would obviously give people who are inspiring or aspiring to come in this position is to understand the business. That's really basic. While legal is one part of it, a very important part of it, but you need to understand and get a knack of how to put your legal knowledge to help the business get the best out of for themselves. So, because it is not purely litigation, because it is not a law firm, we actually go beyond law to give solutions to the businesses to deliver the best possible profits or deliver the best profit to the results that they are intending to. So I think it's out of box thinking, it's innovation, and it's very solution oriented approach, legal as well as business approach, that one has to equip itself to get into this position, is what I think.
Great. Now, last question from you, Vedansh. So now you like I have gone through your profile and seen that you have worked with several distinguished lawyers in India. And given the difference between US and Indian laws, so how it has helped you in your practice here in India, and has it been beneficial, or were there any challenges you faced while entering into this litigation field?
So I'll just say that I always wanted to be a litigating lawyer because I believe that the purpose why I studied law was to understand each subject in its best manner. For me, I was never a one-sided. I was never a one-sided person. When it came to choose a subject, that IPR was not the only thing I wanted to do. Of course, that is a subject which I loved. I fancied to study more, but that never stopped me, to not approach the other legal areas. I have my interest in civil, arbitration, criminal, commercial, as well as IPR. And it's true that doing an LLM in one particular subject, and then you're coming back and then you're not joining a firm of that particular specialization, it can backfire. But luckily, as I said in my earlier conversation, that I was quite kind enough and lucky that I had some briefings. I interacted with some fellow lawyers that who assigned me in an IPR subject work. So I am in that field still. I continue to do the essential things which a young lawyer, of 1 year experience can do. So I've been quite kind enough and been very grateful, for the opportunities I've received here. And it's always, motivating me to excel, and do good in each field. And that has been my ultimate goal. And I have never shied away from the fact, as I said earlier, that doing an LLM in one subject shouldn't stop you from climbing the stairs in other fields, as they are equally important to sustain in India or in abroad. That's my perception. For young lawyers, I can just say that you should have a good plan. You should strategize each move, because if you have chosen this profession, I believe strategy always plays a good role in getting a decision in your favor. That's my limited knowledge I've received in this aspect. So if you are strategically right, that you have the plan that, okay, I'm going to apply here, I'm going to choose these colleges, this is the timeline I have to perform my goal. And once you build up that strategy, I believe there is a God's plan that you would be benefited with the results which come out. And I would definitely say I'm one of them. And I just continue onwards from here, that to excel my graph in all the fields, and yeah, just carry on with my life.
Great, great. So here we come to the end of our session, and thank you once again all for sharing this wonderful experience. It was my pleasure to have a conversation with you all. I hope the insights which you all have given today will benefit our viewers and provide them clarity. Actually, you got given a lot of inputs. So of course, it will provide some sort of a clarity to them to how to go about LLM from abroad. And also would like to have you all once again in my podcast in future. So thank you, everyone. Those who are watching this, please like and share and subscribe. You can also comment or reach out to us in case you have any further questions on pursuing LLM from abroad.
I'd just like to say thank you so much for inviting us. This was an excellent podcast session, and it's always good to interact with Kamini and Aakriti once again.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
So much, Surabhi, for
Thank you
getting
so
all of
much,
us
everyone.
together. And I actually led us to see each other again.
Yeah.